Hi guys, and welcome to another Wargame Red Dragon tutorial with me, Bubblebox, and today we're going to be looking at unit deployment at the start of the game. Each battle starts with a deployment phase during which time is frozen and players place their units in this starting area, and you get about two minutes give or take to do this job. Now the deployment points, which are up here in the top left hand corner of the screen, are used to call up reinforcements in single player and multiplayer games. You start the game with an amount of points, and in this case we've got a massive 2,810 points to use to deploy your units. These points are based on the mission or the game setting. Each game unit has a point value depending on its type and depending on its experience. Clicking on the deployment menu thus brings up the deployment menu containing all of the available units in your deck. The displayed number indicates the remaining number of points that you can spend on all of your reinforcements. Now you use your deployment points to select your new troops and place them on the battlefield. You can buy your units using this deployment panel here. Now your units are arranged in 9 categories, 8 land categories and 1 sea or navy category, which can be used on the mixed sea and navy land maps, sea and land maps. So you click on a category button to display the remaining units in that category. So if we click on the infantry first of all, it will show up all the infantry that are available in this deck. Now each unit type is represented by a thumbnail, so if we just go over to the SAS over here, and it's got its name, SAS, and its country of origin, the British flag up there in the top left of the thumbnail. And it also, for the infantry, will show you which transport they are being brought in. Now each type of unit is so the unit price is displayed as orange here, so this one is going to cost 50 points, and the number of remaining units of this type that can be deployed is displayed in green, so we can deploy 6 sets of these units, and once they're gone, they're gone. The units can be deployed have different ranks, as you can see, and this SAS group is an elite rank. The higher the ranks, the more efficient the units tend to be. You can also see that we've brought up this information panel for this particular type of unit, and we're going to look at information and statistics in a future tutorial, but just for now just realize that you can see the different weapon types. So for the SAS they've got these really nice Stinger missiles which are good against anti-air. They've got some anti-tank heat rockets and a primary weapon there, the M16. Now the only thing I really want to point out just to get you going is you can see they're in different colours, and they go you can have brown, or it's meant to be orange I think, red, green, brown and blue, and red really means it's not very good at that particular job. Orange means it's a bit better. I think it's green next means it's pretty good at that sort of job, and blue means it's excellent at that type of job. So to start with, you'll place your units inside your command zone or your command zones depending on how big your map is, and you can see our command zone here in blue because we're playing blue 4 in this game. So how do you place your units? In order to place your units, first you left click on the deployment icon in the top left corner to open the deployment menu, as we've done already. Then left click on an icon to open the corresponding category, infantry, and then you simply left click on the unit you want to bring in, drag it over to your starting zone, and you can place it anywhere within your starting zone. For example, we'll just place this Puma chopper just there. If you change your mind and think, oh hold on, I don't want that one after all, you can right click on it and it will go back into your deployment menu, and you'll be reimbursed with the amount of points that it initially cost you. And this system also works exactly the same for the planes. So if I choose an aircraft, if I say, oh I think I'll have, I need a couple of Mirages to start with, they'll appear in your airport, and during the deployment phase you can just simply delete them if you change your mind whilst you're deploying. But you can't do this once you've started the game. In the game, once you choose something, it's pretty much chosen for good. Now, there's a couple of other things you can do to help you out. To go back to the infantry, if you want to bring in more than one group, you can click on it sort of. So if you want to bring in a couple of groups of choppers, you can bring in click, 2 clicks and then place it. Or if you want to bring in some land units, we'll bring in some anti-tank guns in VABs. Click it 4 times and you can bring them in sets of 4. For ground units, you can bring them in sets of 1, 2, 3 or 4 by clicking 1, 2, 3 or 4 times. And for choppers, you can bring them in just in sets of 2. But if you do click a chopper 4 times, so 1, 2, 3, 4, it will bring 2 sets of 2 in instead, and you can place them. And you can of course bring 8 sets of VABs in if you want, so you can click this 8 times. I've only got 4 left. These ones here, these TGBs, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it will place a set of 8 down for you. Now also, you can use the shift key, which is quite a useful function. So if you say I've got a set of s'mores this time, so you want to get a set of 2 s'mores and you want to place them somewhere. If you hold the shift key down, you can place them, and then you can place another set exactly the same somewhere else, and another set exactly the same somewhere else. So that will just sort of copy them and put them down until you run out of units. And exactly the same methods as this are used to get reinforcements once the game has started. Also note that unused deployment points are still available after the start of the game, and you might be a sort of player that wants to keep a little bit in reserve for anything unexpected that happens. On some naval battles, so some naval maps, I tend to keep a lot of points in reserve until I've reconnaissanced the enemy to see what sort of thing they're bringing in before I decide whether to bring in anti-ship choppers or anti-ship planes or ships of my own and stuff like that. But you do need to deploy on the ground a fair number of tubes, or you're just going to get overwhelmed at the beginning of the game. Now you'll always need to control the command zones with a command unit in order to get additional deployment costs, of course. These points will let you call in for reinforcements at any time of the game, providing the command zone you or anyone on your team control have a reinforcement entries. So remember that the more zones you have, the more points you get and the more reinforcements you're able to bring in. Finally, always remember to leave a CV in your home base. Very important, because if you don't do that, you're not going to have a home base, because if your CV flies off, then you've got to leave a CV in your home base so that you can use the home base. And home bases are normally worth quite a lot of points anyway. At the start of the game, you may or may not have a fob depending on your deck. You can delete that if you want, or you can bring in extra fobs as well. So if you look in the logistics, I can bring that fob back in if I wanted to. There's only one fob in this deck. Or you can change the CV if you want. If you don't want a flying CV, you could put in an armoured CV, and once that's down you can then delete your Puma if you wanted to. So one other thing you need to know what to do is to communicate with your team at the beginning of the game. So to do that, you can either be on a chat system like Skype or through Steam or on TeamSpeak, but if you don't have that, and most players tend to not to use that, only the teams tend to use that, you can use the flare system, and the flare system's over here on the right. So there's different flares that you can use, and the one on the far right here is the sort of chat flare, where you can say where you're going. So I could say like Bub and press return and just click it, and it will tell my teammate where I'm going to go. Thus. And there's other things you can use. There's this one here which says basically an attack flare, there's a defense flare, and there's a help flare as well. And you can type in little messages. But basically let your teammates know where you're going using flares at the start of the game. And one final thing about the deployment stage of the game is that just make sure you have a good composition of your forces before you let rip. Basically, don't put sort of infantry into open areas, don't put tanks into areas that are sort of push them through forests where you know there's enemy, or put them sort of into big town areas where you know they've infantry with anti-tank weapons. Recon the area as well, bring in a couple of recon. I mean, here's an example. I'm basically going over here where I've flared over to Echo to take this little town over here, and because I'm going to need to go quite a long way, I'm going to be sending my units in some choppers, these Lynx AH7s, which are very fast, and some SAS in there, and the SAS of course have got anti-air, so I can land them as well. I've got some Pumas with some infantry in, and a couple of Lynx 3s which also have anti-chopper and anti-air capabilities, and I'm following them up with some anti-air units as well, and I can bring in other units later in the game. And yeah, so just think about where you're going, think about what you want to do at the start of the game, and have the correct units to do that job, and don't try to do too much. Don't spread your units all over the place. Keep your units in a well-defined area so that they can protect each other, and so that you can micromanage them fairly well. So that's about it for the deployment tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.